popular Filipino news website is facing mounting legal pressure.
The Securities and Exchange Commission revokes the registration of Rappler.
Rappler received a subpoena for a case of cyber libel.
The issue here is not press freedom.
Rappler's boss says a war of attrition is underway, one she and her colleagues are determined to win.
We begin in the Philippines and a popular online news site, Rappler, that's long been a thorn in the side of President Rodrigo Duterte. Rappler's criticism of Duterte's signature policy, his war on drugs, and its investigations into his personal wealth have not gone down well with the president. Duterte has long accused Rappler of being run by Americans, which would be illegal under Filipino law. The site now faces a possible shutdown over that allegation. Rappler says this is pure politicization of the press, that the president now calls the shots when it comes to media regulation. Since coming to power in 2016, Rodrigo Duterte has made thinly veiled threats against journalists and hit them with accusations of fake news. But this official move against Rappler takes the conflict to another level. Rappler vows to take the case to the Supreme Court if it has to. And should that happen, we're sure to learn a lot about the media, politics, and power in the age of Duterte. Our starting point this week is Manila.
Why are we targeted? Because we're journalists who ask tough questions. We've done investigative reports on key facets of this administration, starting with the drug war of President Duterte and the online social media propaganda machine, and how that forms the bedrock of disinformation in this country that really is crippling democracy. What we're going to do is to challenge it, and we will be challenging this. Take every legal remedy that is possible, take it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we're also taking it to the people.
By fighting the case in the court of public opinion.
We believe that freedom stands for courage.
Rappler has posted videos on its own site explaining its side of the legal story.
Rappler is 100% owned by Filipinos.
There's also an FAQ section there dedicated to the case. Its editors have used news conferences.
This is a harassment case.
And freedom of the press demonstrations, again, to get the word out.
Defend press freedom!
And they have turned to their colleagues in mainstream news outlets, channels like ABS-CBN and GMA, to report on the story. As well those outlets might, given the kind of precedent this case could set in the Philippines.
They're trying to test the waters. If nobody will complain or protest about what they're doing with Rappler, they would go ahead with the other news organizations. And in fact, the president has come out with speeches against the largest daily news broadcast, the Inquirer.
Alam mo ang Inquirer kahapon, talagang ang
And he has also lashed out against the two biggest news organizations on TV, ABS-CBN, Channel 2, and GMA 7 News.
Pati yung ABS na yan, isa ka pang mukhang pera.
President Duterte has continued to lash out against any kind of news organization that exposes any kind of wrongdoing in his government.
If we allow Rappler to go down, sooner or later everyone's going down. We cannot afford that, and we will not allow that. We've been through the Marcos dictatorship when he shut down all media and then had only his mouthpieces, his propaganda mouthpieces. And we do not want that to happen. Because press freedom is not even ours. It belongs to the people. And you take away press freedom, you take away people's right to information. And that's very basic. So you lose democracy that way.
The government's case against Rappler is a financial one. Like many companies in the Philippines, Rappler uses PDRs, Philippine Depository Receipts, as a vehicle to secure foreign funding. PDRs give investors a slice of the profits if the company makes money, but unlike shares, no control of that company. What the Philippines' financial regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, is asserting is that one of Rappler's PDR investors, the Omidyar Group, run by eBay founder Pierre Omidyar, does have a measure of control over things like the company's makeup or bylaws, thereby breaching Filipino law, which forbids foreign control of media companies. Harry Roque is a spokesperson for President Duterte.
Rappler is about money. It is not about freedom of the press. What Rappler did was an ingenious fundraising scheme that resulted in control by a foreign entity of a media corporation. Because the business of spreading information is vested with national interest, it should only be owned by Filipinos.
But the thing is, even the SEC recognizes PDRs, not as ownership, but as investments. And it's not only Rappler. The other networks have PDRs. And one very telling thing, too, is the fact that the Solicitor General, who is basically the government's lawyer, asked SEC to act on the complaint against Rappler. So it's basically government telling the Securities and Exchange Commission to do something about Rappler. So that alone is a very blatant government intervention.
You have to look at the SEC decision in context. Philippine media has been under attack online for more than a year and a half. And just last July, Duterte targeted Rappler. And then a few days after the SEC decision, I received a cyber libel case for a 2012 article that was published before the cyber libel law was actually passed. The government says this is pure coincidence, but when coincidences happen too frequently, they form patterns, and the pattern's very clear.
That Rappler, and not a more conventional news outlet, has provoked this kind of response from the authorities is a measure of just how far the site has come in the 6 years since its launch, and the importance now attached to alternative news sources in the Philippines.
It's fairly innovative because this is the first time we have a purely online news organization. It did not have a print version. It doesn't have a broadcast satellite facility. So this is the first time that we have a purely news online site, and a big portion of the shares are owned by journalists and reporters themselves. So as an innovative project, you would like to have more Rapplers.
Rodrigo Duterte came to power in mid-2016, launching his war on drugs and drug users. The government puts the number of extrajudicial killings at 4,000. Human rights groups say it's more like 12,000. Rappler was among the news outlets critical of the carnage and the absence of due process. That displeased a president who does not take kindly to second-guessing, and who used last year's State of the Union address to take issue with Rappler and its ownership.
You are supposed to be 100% Filipino. Rappler tried to pierce the identity, and you will end up American ownerships.
Rappler has also made enemies in the Filipino blogosphere. President Duterte has legions of online backers, the self-described DDS, die-hard Duterte supporters, some of whom can be quite vicious, posting the home addresses of journalists they disapprove of, threatening them, and trying to undermine the work of sites like Rappler that criticize Duterte or his policies.
We did a whole series of this in October 2016. That was what made us a target of the propaganda machine. As soon as we published that story, we came under attack. I was getting hate messages, rape messages, death threats, an average of 90 hate messages per hour. Our best defense was to understand it. So we collected the data and we processed it. We showed that 26 fake accounts can actually ripple and influence up to 3 million other accounts. By April 2017, the key content creators in that propaganda machine were appointed to government. It's online, state-sponsored hate, and it is meant to silence dissent. It is meant to silence criticism.
As poisonous as the rhetoric in the blogosphere can be, the government's case against Rappler, based on those PDRs, seems downright pedantic. It's worth reiterating. Rappler is not the only news outlet in the Philippines that uses PDRs as a source of financing. The country's two biggest television networks, ABS-CBN and GMA, use them as well. No prizes for guessing where this story's going.
President Duterte, while he says that he's not sending armies to close down the news organizations, he's trying to kill them slowly, constricting their economic funding, their sources of funding. So this is not the worst. The worst is yet to come.